This episode of the Senior Rehab Podcast is sponsored by the Academy of Geriatric Physical Therapy. AGPT's mission is to further your ability to provide best practice physical therapy and to advocate for optimal aging. One of their most popular articles published is Dale Aver's white paper on strength training for the older adult. You've likely heard us talk about this paper, but it is a fundamental piece of work that I highly encourage y'all to read. This paper covers proper dosage, how to set intensity, and how to get your patients strong. You can find this resource for free and much more over at geriatricspt.org/SRP. That's geriatricspt.org/SRP. Hit me.
This is a Senior Rehab Podcast, the podcast for rehab clinicians that want to better serve older adults.
Hey there, Senior Rehab Podcast listeners. I'm Tali Spaceman.
I'm Erinn Carey.
And this is Senior Rehab Project SRP Rex.
SRP Rex.
Yes.
SRP Rex.
Okay, how are you doing, Erinn?
I'm doing really well. How are you, Tali?
I'm doing good. Can I teach you something?
Like you do every time we do this podcast?
No, I want to teach you something more, like a motor or something.
A motor skill. You're going to teach me.
I want to teach you a motor skill.
You're going to like physical therapy me right now?
I would like you to take your left hand.
Left. Okay.
Face it towards me. And now I would like you to do an ulnar deviation and a radial deviation and an ulnar deviation again and a radial deviation. We can stop. Now I'll teach you the other way.
Okay.
Hi, can you just wave at me like you're doing hello?
Oh.
Which one was easier?
The waving of hello. I hope everyone was doing that at home or in your cars, waving to people. Just ulnarly deviating, radially That's okay. I like that. That was clever.
So I didn't really teach you anything new, but sometimes it's better to teach people by analogy, or at least this is the hypothesis of this article.
This just makes me think of there have been patients in the past where like they have non-weight bearing precautions that for some reason they don't get, and I'm like, just be Captain Morgan.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. This is okay. Cool. I do this. All right.
Yes. All right. Motor learning is a process by which relatively permanent changes are made in the capacity of movement. And it is an essential process throughout lifespan. This is how children typically acquire fundamental motor skills to develop the competency to perform range of functional motor tasks. Mm-hmm. This is how older adults learn or relearn tasks in order to gain their autonomy or psychological well-being.
I mean, other people do it too, not just children and older adults.
Yeah, everybody motor learn. And in documented research, there is a decline in motor learning abilities with aging. It is shown more in learning new complex motor tasks than in simple learning tasks.
So that decline is more apparent in complex tasks versus simple tasks? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Exactly.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. With simple motor tasks, it appears not to be affected that much by aging, owing to sensory adaptation and learning strategies. So the more complex tasks are being affected by aging.
Got it.
All right. How do you usually learn something new?
Well, I'm a pretty visual / kinesthetic learner. Mm-hmm. I'll see someone else do something. Mm-hmm. I'll try it myself. And hopefully with some feedback, I then make corrections until I do it adequately.
All right. But feedback is a very important
I mean, without my own feedback of myself and the feedback from others, there wouldn't be much learning. Mm-hmm. I would just be doing, and that would be silly.
Well, doing is okay, but learning is better. During motor learning tasks, instructions are often given by teachers or coaches to convey relevant information to the learners. And then learners use cognitive resources from working memory to process and manipulate the instructional information.
Yep, I'm on board. This is all coming back.
But given the decline in capacity of working memory in aging...
Oh.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Older adults may encounter difficulty in comprehending instructions. And moreover, if the amount of information conveyed by the instructor exceeds the cognitive capacity of the learner, learning may be less effective if I tell them too many things, and we all know that.
Yeah.
And we're the same too. Even though we're relatively not old, I have problems when somebody tells me too much information as a feedback.
Yep, same.
Yeah. So this is the reason that instructions involving less cognitive demand are preferable for older populations to acquire motor skills. So what is an excellent way that may help? Analogy.
I was going to say writing it down.
Writing it down.
But that's me.
No, but in this context, analogy may provide an appropriate method because analogy is a form of instruction that aid learning a new concept by relating it to fundamentally similar action.
They're like little shortcuts.
Exactly.
Oh, I like that. How fun.
Exactly. And this technique is commonly used in sports. You know, I don't know, have you learned any sports when you were younger?
I don't know sport thing. That's not true. I played basketball in elementary school.
Have there ever...
I was terrible. I don't know why they let me play.
Because you were tall. It's the same reason they let me play.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to believe, and when I was younger, people looked at me and like, oh, you're so tall, you must play basketball. I'm like, yes, this is the only thing that a basketball player needs. It's the only demand from a basketball player to be tall. But like with swimming, sometimes you get kicked like a dolphin when you are taught butterfly strokes.
But the dolphin has one fin and I have two legs.
Yes, but you make it into a one fin.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Instead of...
Keep your legs together.
Keep your legs together and move them up and down.
And flex and extend your hips. Oh. Instead, be a dolphin.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
In addition to facilitating the understanding of the instructions, previous studies have also shown that performance induced by analogy instruction is more robust than when induced by explicit instructions in cognitively demanding situation, like if you're under pressure or if there's a dual task to do.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if you make it simpler to learn in the first place, it's going to make it simpler to execute later.
Yeah. And also because it's already ingrained in your brain as a pattern.
Yeah.
And you don't have to think about it that much. It does evacuate some of the elements in your brain to...
So it uses less working memory to allow that working memory space to do other things. Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah. But the thing is that until this study, it kind of remains unclear whether analogy-based methods are applicable for motor learning in older adults. By the way, this one was published in Psychology of Sports and Exercise in October 2016. It's a collaboration between Hong Kong University and the University of Waikato in New Zealand. So let's go to the methods. Methods. Participants. You had 36 young adults, mean age of 21.9, SD of 2.3 years. Somewhere between the ages of 18 and 26.
Yeah, so college age adults.
And 34 older adults, mean age of 66.9 and range between 60 and 76. All participants reported they were right-handed, had no neurological diseases, no back pain, no chronic pain in their right forearm, shoulder or hand, and reported that they did not have any prior experience in table tennis.
They played ping pong?
Yes, that was the motor learning task. I'll get to it later.
I want to be in this research.
I know, it sounded so fun. All participants also scored 24 or above in the Cantonese version of mini mental states examination.
So no cognitive deficits or big cognitive deficits at baseline.
Yeah. Also attained 20/20 vision and visual acuity tests with either a correction of glasses or no glasses, and scored 12 or above in the digit span memory test. It's a memory test. The apparatus. How did they do it? They did everything the same as a previous study by Liao and Masters that was done in 2001. It's the one that proved that analogies are...
It's better for...
Are better for younger people.
And learning ping pong.
Yeah.
table tennis.
So they just took that study and saw if it's the same for older adults. So they did the same. There were 2 cameras positioned to record motor skill performance throughout the study. A table tennis ball machine was used to deliver tennis balls at a speed of 25 balls per minute for both the young and the adult. The scoring system was identical to the one in the 2001 study. Table was divided into different scoring regions. Design and procedure. The study consisted of 2 sessions, 2 days apart. So you had to be there for 2 days. The first day, it started with completion of the screening tests and a general instruction on table tennis.
To make sure that people knew what they were getting into.
And the scoring system. Like if this is the table, if you get this, you get X point. If you your goal is to get here.
Right.
All right?
Yep.
Followed by demonstration of the shake hand grip.
Shake hand grip?
Yeah, it's how you hold the pedal.
Okay.
Just so there wouldn't be a difference in both the holding of the pedal and the standing position.
I see.
So
okay.
that wouldn't be the difference of some people stood like that, some people held like this.
Yeah,
so
it's a standardization.
Yeah, so they showed everybody how to hold and how to stand in front of the table to ensure that all participants use the same grip and standing position. And all participants were then presented with a diagram showing the rotation of the ball topspin stroke. So the topspin stroke was the task that was taught.
I see. Okay. So it's
Okay, so they first showed everybody a diagram.
Baseline. Everyone has some basic knowledge of a topspin stroke.
Yeah. Participants were then randomly assigned to one of 2 instruction groups. Analogy instruction and explicit instruction group. So you have older adults, younger adults, and each one of them was divided. In the analogy instruction group, participants were instructed to move the racket as if it was traveling up the side of a mountain. That was the analogy.
That's a lovely thought.
Yeah.
We're doing the motion right now. You can't see it.
You can't see it.
That's why I'm giving you a sound effect so you can feel like you're here with us.
In the explicit instruction group, participants were asked to follow instruction taken from a teaching manual. They wrote it down. It's really boring. It's like
We don't have to go there.
I'm not going to go there because it's really boring. And
Not
I
as
know
nice as a mountain.
Some people are driving and I don't want them to fall asleep.
Looking out for you.
Yeah. Participants then started the learning phase and were required to perform 180 strokes in 6 blocks of 30 trials.
This doesn't sound as much fun anymore.
Stroke! A 3-minute rest period was allowed between blocks. So this was the learning phase. Upon completion of the learning phase, participants were asked to complete a verbal protocol questionnaire, which required them to recall any techniques or strategies that they used during the learning phase.
So they would talk about their learning experience and describe it to the researchers?
Yeah.
Okay, kind of like, well, I noticed that I'm terrible, and so I sat down and cried. But like way more constructive? I'm not sad about my lack of sports background.
You are very emotional. No, it was, maybe it was that. I don't know. Maybe they were like, oh, so why did you cry?
How disappointed are your parents?
Yeah.
Very.
Very. And following the completion of the verbal protocol questionnaire, participants were given 3 minutes rest before they continued to the dual task test.
So this is after the 180 strokes.
Yeah.
They had some self-reflection time.
Yeah. Of what am I doing with my life? Why am I volunteering to research that make me feel incompetent?
Yeah. All right, cool. And then they get another break.
And then in the dual task test, participants were asked to perform 30 strokes concurrently with backward counting task.
Like the backward counting where you skip numbers?
Yeah.
I could never do that. I can't do that when I'm just thinking.
I know. So
thanks, Tali.
Participants were asked to count backwards from 203 in sevenths. So 203, 190, 6, yeah. and so on.
180. See?
You can do it.
My parents are very disappointed.
I think they have better expectation of you. So she's a doctor and all, but she can count backward from 7.
Starting at 203. What a pleb.
And finally, 15-minute rest was given to participants before the immediate retention test.
This is all day 1?
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yes. In the immediate retention test, in which they were required to perform 30 trials without the secondary task. And this was the end of the first day. So in the first day, they were taught how to do it. Then
they practiced.
Something like that. In the first day, we so far had 2 tasks. We had the dual task and we had the immediate retention. Those are the results we got from that day. The DT, dual tasking, and the immediate retention, IR.
All right.
Second day. 2 days later, it was the skill consolidation test.
Skill consolidation.
Yeah. The test was identical to the immediate retention test. Okay, it's just to do the same thing, but 2 days after.
Okay, which makes perfect sense.
Without even counting backwards.
Much easier.
Yeah. Results. So I'm going to talk about 3 things in the results. About the learning rate, which is the slope of the learning, and performance scores. And also the digit span memory test score.
All right, I'm into it. Let's do this.
Learning rate, the slope of regression indicates that young adults acquire the motor skill significantly faster than older adults.
Okay, and we expect that.
Yes. Performance scores. So there were significant main effects for group and age in performance scores. So performance scores. In the DT test, the dual task test, post-hoc t-tests showed that performance in the analogy instruction group was better than the explicit instruction group for both the older and the younger.
Nice. But, okay.
All right. So for dual tasking, analogy showed better results. In the IR, immediate retention, post-hoc t-tests also showed that performance in the analogy instruction groups was better than the explicit instruction group for both the young and older.
Cool.
And when comparing performance between the IR and the DT tests for young adults, both instruction groups demonstrate significantly higher performance scores than in the IR versus the DT.
Say that one more time.
So everybody did better in the IR, in the immediate retention, versus the dual tasking.
In the analogy group.
In every group.
Got it. They all just did better with the immediate retention.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Everybody did better when they didn't need to count
backwards from 203. Yeah. By 7s.
Yeah. In contrast, when comparing performance between IR and DT for older adults, the analogy instruction group had significantly higher performance score in IR than DT, whereas explicit instruction group performed equally in the IR versus the DT.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So the explicit did the same for IR and DT.
Interesting.
Yeah. And finally,
here we go.
In the SC, in the skill consolidation, there's no significant age-related difference.
Yo!
The analogy instruction group demonstrated significantly prolonged learning effect compared with explicit instruction group.
So no matter your age?
For both younger and adults, yeah.
That's so cool.
Like, no matter your age, the analogy is better for skill consolidation. If they ask you 2 days later to perform something, if we're taught by analogy, you are more likely to do it better.
So I'm going to keep telling my patients to Captain Morgan it.
Yeah. Just Captain Morgan all along.
Just Captain Morgan.
And both older and young explicit instruction groups displayed decreased performance scores in IR and the SC, in the immediate retention and skill consolidation. Digit span memory. The results revealed a significant difference between young and older adults. Working memory capacity of older adults was significantly lower than the younger adults.
Yeah, we expect that.
Right. In the skill consolidation, older adults that learned by analogy did a little better than young adults that did by explicit. Yeah.
I love it. That's the skill consolidation 2 days later. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So teach motor skills by analogy.
Sometimes, yeah. A little bit for the discussion. So the present study examined the application of analogy instruction in motor learning among older adults. The purpose of the study was to see if we can generalize the fact that learning by analogy is a lot of times better for motor tasks, if we can generalize it to older adults.
And I think that this supports that.
And when a secondary concurrent task was imposed, the performance of analogy-instructed older adults was more robust compared to their explicitly instructed counterparts.
Rock and roll.
So, and this is really important for us because a lot of times we teach things in the clinic, but in the end, somebody has to cross the road while they're doing it in the community.
Right.
Or do more than one task. If they go shopping, they need to also read the shopping list.
Right. Or like if their phone starts ringing, they need to be able to answer it while they're walking.
Exactly. So there's a lot of dual tasking in our lives and in older adults' lives. And the benefit of analogy instruction shown in the present study may be explained by what they call chunking. With analogy, complex rule structures involving many bits of information relevant to a task may be integrated or chunked into a form that does not require conscious processing.
Yeah, so like making little rules that apply to everything.
And if chunking is used, more attentional resources may have been freed up to cope with the extra cognitive demands.
I believe it.
Moreover, if less cognitive resources were required in learning induced by analogy instruction, more resources would then be available to memorize structure of the motor movement.
Makes solid sense.
Yeah, and that results in better consolidation of the motor skill.
Cool.
So conclusion, analogy may be beneficial for motor learning in older adults, leading to a more resilient and more persistent learning than explicit instruction. Because it's not only about how they retained it, it's also about how they can draw it when they need it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. That was a really cool article, Tali.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to go through that article with me. I think that like it kind of makes me think about the ways I'm teaching patients things. Like I'm going to use less of like, and point your toes when I'm teaching ankle pumps.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And more like, you're a pretty ballerina.
Pretty ballerina, pump that gas.
Pump that gas. Oh, that's a good one.
A lot of what we do has to do with teaching motor skills. It's a bread and butter of our, more than exercise, this is actually our bread and butter. Because exercise, athletic trainers can do, but teaching motor skills, that's our jam.
That's our jam. And we should do it by talking about Captain Morgan.
Yeah. Talk about Captain Morgan.
Mermaids, dolphins.
Yeah.
Octopi.
We have to always test ourselves if we're doing the best job in motor teaching.
I agree.
All right, Erinn. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tali. And thank you all listeners for listening to SR Prereqs.
Yeah, I'm Tali Spaceman.
I'm Erinn Curry.
And as always,
stay funky.
Hit me. Thank you for listening to the Senior Rehab Podcast. If you only listen to these podcast episodes, you are missing out on 90% of the Senior Rehab Project. Hop on over to seniorrehabproject.com where you can join the movement that's advancing care for older adults. You can join for free or become a part of the Game Changers where you can get some free gear and access to our monthly meetup. Just go to seniorrehabproject.com. I appreciate y'all, and I'll talk with you soon. But in the meantime, do not forget to stay funky.